Ukraine exposes Russia's false claims as ATACMS strike hits deep inside territory. In a single morning, a long-range Ukrainian strike, a recycled Russian Ministry of Defense video, and a wave of conflicting battlefield reports have reshaped the story of this war. What began as a precision missile attack quickly turned into a major information crisis for Moscow, as its attempt to disguise the real target and hide the damage collapsed under scrutiny. Critical airfields, troop concentrations, and frontline aviation were allegedly hit, while Russian air defenses once again failed to stop ballistic missiles. As Europe simultaneously unveiled its newest generation of battle tanks, the strategic landscape shifted on multiple fronts. How did Ukraine manage to expose Russia's claims so quickly? And what does this mean for the next phase of the conflict? The full picture unfolds ahead. Today at 7:30 a.m., the operational picture around the Russia-Ukraine war shifted once again as Ukraine confirmed that it had used US-made ATACMS missiles against Russian territory. This was the first publicly acknowledged ATACMS strike since the second Trump administration began, and its timing suggested a calculated effort by Ukraine to regain strategic initiative at a moment when Russian troop concentrations had been expanding their activity. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine stated only that the missiles were used in a precision operation, offering no further technical or geographic details. The absence of specifics reflected standard Ukrainian policy for deep strike operations, because withholding information prevents Russian forces from evaluating the accuracy and direction of Ukrainian launch activity. By 8:10 a.m., the Russian Ministry of Defense attempted to present an alternative narrative. Moscow announced that its forces had detected and destroyed 2 American-supplied MLRS launchers allegedly used by Ukraine to carry out the ATACMS strike. According to the Russian claim, the destruction occurred after an Iskander-MM tactical ballistic missile hit the supposed Ukrainian firing position in the Voloskhovaya-Balakaya area. Russian officials asserted that the strike eliminated launchers, ammunition, and personnel. To support the statement, the ministry released a drone-based thermal imaging video that supposedly depicted the moment of impact. However, minutes later, Russian military bloggers and analysts noticed inconsistencies. One prominent Z blogger, Alex Parker, pointed out that the footage was not new. It was identical to a video the Russian Ministry of Defense had released more than a year earlier during a strike in the Sumy region. The only changes in the newly published version were a tighter crop and heavier zoom to conceal its origin. Because visual signatures, blast pattern, and terrain features matched earlier footage, the doctored clip was immediately recognized as recycled footage. The recycled video undercut the ministry's claim and credibility, and signaled that Russian officials did not possess evidence supporting their claim of destroying Ukrainian ATACMS launch platforms. Around 8:40 a.m., Russian regional channels in Voronezh began reporting the sound of incoming ballistic missiles. Local residents described bright flashes in the sky and a sequence of detonations that indicated either air defense activity or the impact of cluster submunitions. Pro-Russian social media groups published similar accounts, noting rapid air defense launches and shockwaves felt across several districts. These reports contradicted the Russian Defense Ministry's earlier claim that all incoming missiles had been intercepted before reaching their targets. The General Staff of Ukraine later confirmed that ATACMS missiles had been used to strike Russian territory. They did not reveal the number of missiles launched, their trajectory, or their intended targets. Yet open source reports circulated throughout the morning that one of the primary targets was the Poganovo training ground. Poganovo is a major Russian military preparation site, used for assembling forces before deployment toward Ukraine. Analysts had previously identified it as a central hub for troop rotations, artillery storage, and staging operations. Because of its importance, it was considered a likely candidate for a Ukrainian deep strike attempt. By 9:20 a.m., new information began to surface from Russian military-affiliated sources. Photographs of missile debris recovered near the targeted areas were posted online. These images showed intact ATACMS engine casings with no warheads attached. The missile bodies appeared undamaged by air defense interceptors, which typically leave fragmentation scars or structural tears. The photographs matched the known post-impact condition of ATACMS cluster munition variants. These missiles release sub-munitions in mid-air at a programmed altitude, allowing bomblets to spread across a wide target footprint, while the empty missile body falls inertly to the ground. Intact casings are consistent with successful mid-air sub-munition release rather than interception. Evidence indicates that the missiles deployed sub-munitions over the target areas. Cyber Borsner, an analytical group monitoring battlefield activity, identified two key sites affected by the strike: the Baltimore Military Airfield and the Poganovo Training Ground. Baltimore Airfield hosts the 47th Guards Bomber Aviation Regiment, equipped with Su-34 fighter bombers. These aircraft routinely conduct guided bomb and missile strikes on Ukrainian positions, making them a high-priority target for Ukraine. Analysts assessed the strike likely sought to degrade frontline aviation. Even a temporary disruption to Su-34 operations can alter the tempo of Russian airstrikes, affect precision targeting, and force repositioning of aircraft to bases farther from the front. The Poganovo Training Ground, the second identified target, contained troop concentrations, equipment depots, and staging units preparing for deployment. A successful cluster munition strike on such a site can disrupt planned troop movements, damage soft-skinned vehicles, and complicate operational planning. Because the training ground plays a role in supporting Russian rotations along the Eastern Front, the strike carried strategic implications for Russia's ability to maintain pressure in contested sectors. By 10:05 a.m., Russian propaganda channels attempted to counter Ukrainian claims by repeating the assertion that the missiles had been shot down. Yet the photographic evidence they themselves had published contradicted the narrative. The deployed sub-munitions, the intact casings, and the absence of intercept damage all pointed to the missiles fulfilling their intended trajectory and function. This discrepancy, combined with the exposed video forgery, further weakened Moscow's information response and suggested internal uncertainty about how to manage the incident. ATACMS strikes on Russian territory remain rare for political reasons. Their usage requires balancing strategic effect with international risk, especially given the missile's US origin and its long-range capability. The previous confirmed use inside Russia occurred a year earlier. The renewed strike signaled that Ukraine still possessed these systems and was prepared to employ them when high-value strategic targets became vulnerable. The operation also reaffirmed the ongoing limitations of Russian air defense systems in countering ballistic threats. While systems such as the S-300 and S-400 are optimized for aircraft and cruise missiles, they have repeatedly shown difficulty tracking and intercepting ballistic missiles with short flight arcs and high terminal velocities. At 11:15 a.m., analysts shifted focus to expected satellite imagery. The extent of damage at Baltimore Airfield and Poganovo would become clearer once new overhead images became available. However, even without satellite confirmation, the strike was already viewed as one of Ukraine's most precise and strategically impactful deep strike operations in recent months. Because the missiles reached their targets without interception, the attack demonstrated both tactical proficiency and effective intelligence coordination. At 12:30 p.m., developments in Europe added another dimension to the day's defense narrative. Germany publicly presented its newly developed Leopard 2 A8 mained battle tank in Munich. The unveiling coincided with the European Union's announcement of a new defense investment package designed to strengthen collective deterrence, particularly in light of continuing tensions with Russia. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius emphasized that the tank and the industrial cooperation behind it held significance not only for Germany, but for all European nations committed to maintaining stability across the continent. His remarks highlighted the increasing importance of unity and coordinated defense planning at a time when geopolitical pressures remain high. Reports from German media indicated that the Bundeswehr would receive the first Leopard 2 A8 units in 2026. These vehicles would undergo extensive testing to evaluate survivability, fire control accuracy, mobility, and electronic integration. After the testing phase, the first operational battalions would receive their vehicles. The initial deployment would occur with troops from the Lithuanian Brigade stationed on NATO's eastern flank, reflecting strategic prioritization of the Baltic region, one of the alliance's most sensitive defense zones. Several European states, including the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the Czech Republic, have also placed orders for the Leopard 2 A8. The model includes improvements in armor protection, sensor fusion, and battlefield communication systems. These enhancements were driven in part by lessons learned from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, where modern anti-tank threats, drone surveillance, and precision artillery have reshaped expectations for survivability and mobility on the battlefield. Throughout the presentation, German officials underscored the importance of maintaining industrial cooperation across Europe. They argued that shared production systems reduce the cost of modernization, accelerate delivery timetables, and ensure interoperable equipment among NATO forces. This approach is intended to create a more resilient defensive network, capable of responding quickly to changes along the alliance's borders. By 1:20 p.m., the combination of Ukraine's ATACMS strike and Europe's defense developments created a wider strategic picture. On one side, Ukraine demonstrated that it could still reach deep into Russian military infrastructure and disrupt key assets. On the other hand, European nations showcased new equipment and funding mechanisms designed to strengthen collective defense and deter further escalation. The interplay between these two developments reflected a broader shift. Long-range precision strikes and advanced armored systems are becoming central elements in the evolving security landscape. As the day progressed, analysts continued to examine the implications of the ATACMS operation. The strike revealed ongoing vulnerabilities in Russian air defenses, exposed inaccuracies in Russian information reporting, and showed Ukraine's continued ability to reach targets considered secure by Moscow. Meanwhile, Europe's defense posture continued to move toward deeper integration and more modernized military equipment. The coming weeks will show whether Ukraine expands its deep strike campaign and whether Russia adapts its defenses or its information responses. The situation raises a broader question that shapes the uncertainty ahead. Will these developments trigger a new escalation cycle, or will they force both sides to reassess their operational strategies as winter approaches?